Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's last post ceremony. My name is Troy Clayton, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Navy is Lieutenant Alex Mobbs. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. We also acknowledge the members of the RSL Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria, and RSL Queensland, who are watching this ceremony broadcast across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by visitors to the memorial. If you're able, please stand and join in singing the National Anthem. Thank you. If you're able, please be seated. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn their loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we'll read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection.
Today, we remember and pay tribute to Trooper Ernest Ambrose Roberts. Ernest Roberts was born in 1872, the youngest son of William and Jessie Roberts. Born in Wagga Wagga, New South Wales, when he was 3 years old, the family moved to Bathurst, where his father was in charge of the architects branch of the Public Works. Ernest began his education at All Saints College, where Charles Bean's father was headmaster. He was described as a high-spirited lad, always with a strong dash of mischief in his makeup, who from an early age showed a great talent at playing rugby. From All Saints, Ernest went to the King's School in Parramatta. At some point in his schooling career, Ernest won the nickname Nulla, which was widely used for the rest of his life. Nulla Roberts was described by more than one person as the idol or hero of the King's School. And the headmaster later said of him that the boy at the time seemed to sum up what a boy of the King's School could and should be. Roberts retained his relationship with the school throughout his life as an active member of the Old Boys networks and committees. Ernest Roberts went on to work in Sydney as a solicitor, forming a partnership with his good friend from school, Paddy Lane. Nulla and Paddy had become friends throughout their playing rugby union together at school. And while their legal partnership was successful, both became much more widely known through their talent at the game. Nulla Roberts was first selected to represent New South Wales against Queensland in 1890 and would represent his state regularly throughout the first part of the decade. Despite his compelling personality, Nulla was described as a man of very quiet disposition and singularly unobtrusive. He had a quiet voice which was never heard on the football field. On the 8th of December 1899, Ernest Roberts married Elsie Lashley in St Mary's Cathedral, Auckland. Their daughter Joyce was born in Sydney in 1901, followed by a son, Harley, born in 1906. On the outbreak of the war in 1914, Nulla Roberts was an established Sydney solicitor with a growing family and an ageing, widowed mother reliant on him. Nevertheless, he could not shake the feeling that he needed to go and serve his country in war. In mid-1915, with recruitment in Australia starting to slow, enlistment standards were relaxed, raising the maximum age for enlistment from 38 to 45, the crucial element to enable Roberts to enlist. He said, "The young single men will not go, and so an older and married man like myself had better set an example, and it may shame some of them into doing their duty." Despite his many friends begging him to reconsider, Ernest Roberts enlisted in the Australian Imperial Force a month before his 43rd birthday. Private Ernest Roberts left Australia for active service overseas with the 12th Light Horse Regiment on the troop ship Subic in June 1915. The commanding officer of his regiment, Lieutenant Colonel Percy Abbott, was a friend and fellow rugby player. Abbott's wife later recalled, "I was talking to Roberts on the day the Subic left the harbour. He said he hoped he would come back, but he felt he would not." She added, "My husband and I always thought it so grand of Nulla to go into the ranks, but he was always such a man." The 12th Light Horse Regiment was sent to Egypt, arriving on the 23rd of July 1915. However, the regiment was disbanded soon after its arrival, and the men sent as reinforcements to the light horse units serving on Gallipoli. As part of this process, Roberts was transferred to the 7th Light Horse Regiment. Within a week, he was wounded by a bomb fragment in the forearm, but not seriously enough to warrant leaving the lines. Private Roberts was delighted to be at war. One of his comrades wrote to a mutual friend in Sydney to say, "Do you remember the last Sunday when we were at Holdsworthy, when he was the life of us all?" He was just the same here in this squadron, liked by everyone and shirking nothing, doing his work no matter what sort and always cheerfully. On the 17th of September 1915, there was a small sniping battle going on between the Turks and the Australians in Nulla Roberts' part of the line. Lieutenant Gordon Brown, a King's Old Boy who had left Australia with the 12th Light Horse Regiment and transferred to the 6th, later recalled, "A decoy was put up, suddenly with some 30 yards or so nearer to the Australian lines, and Nulla was told of the opportunity. He put his head up over the parapet to get a shot. Brown added, just what Nulla would do, to up at one and have a go. Just as Roberts put his head up, however, a Turkish bullet crashed into it and he fell to the floor of the trench, dead. The Bathurst Times noted it would be impossible to mention all the tributes to Nulla Roberts one had heard and read. Suffice it to say, they all agreed in the loving recognition of his noble qualities of true manliness, real loyalty, and steadfast desire to serve to the utmost of his power. Of such great-hearted sons, Australia should indeed be proud. Private Ernest Roberts was buried in Shell Green Cemetery, where he lies today. He was 43 years old. His name is listed on the Roll of Honour on my right, among almost 62,000 Australians who died while serving in the First World War. His photograph is displayed today beside the pool of reflection. This is but one of many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Trooper Ernest Ambrose Roberts, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the Ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them.
We'll remember them.
Lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Poziere or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, the girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. We'd like to thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial and wish you all a very good evening. Thank you.